Hey guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Laura, for those of you that do not know. And for today's video, I'm going to be talking about books that remind me of my favorite TV shows. And now this is a question that I get a ton. Like, you guys are constantly asking me, like, I watched X, Y, or Z. Do you have any book recommendations that are similar? And the truth is, yes, I'm constantly comparing books to my favorite shows and movies and vice versa. And I just kind of have like a list in my brain of certain books that remind me of certain things. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about a few different shows that I really love, and I'm going to be kind of making a trope out of the TV show and then giving you books that remind me of the trope slash the show. So for example, the first one is for Degrassi, which is my favorite teen drama show. It's the best show in existence. If you've not watched it, Degrassi: The Next Generation, seasons 1 through 10. Best show on earth, just saying. But that's kind of like the high school drama, school year trope kind of thing. I'm also going to be talking about Outer Banks, which is this new show on Netflix that I'm obsessed with, and a lot of you guys have been asking me for recommendations, and that would be kind of like a summary teen vibe kind of book. So I'm going to go through and give you guys my recommendations. I chose like 4 books for each show, so I hope you guys enjoy this video, and if you like it, I'll definitely do more shows or movie comparisons in the future. So just let me know what you guys are feeling like in the comments down below. But other than that, let's just get started with the recommendations. So like I said, for the first show, I'm going to be doing Degrassi, which gives me like teen drama vibes. The first book I'm going to be recommending is Wait For You by J. Lynn. This is a book that I've talked about previously, and I just love it so much. This book does take place in college, however, it felt very Degrassi-esque to me. It follows a girl who's kind of venturing out of her hometown for the first time to go to college. She has a lot of baggage back where she lives at home. Lots of drama happened to her when she was in high school, lots of rumors surrounding her. So she's moving away to college. She's kind of shy and reserved, doesn't really want to be friends with people, just kind of wants to do her own thing. But on the first day of school, she literally runs into this guy in the hallway, and he takes an interest in her, and immediately he like won't leave her alone. Turns out they're actually roommates and live in the same apartment complex across the way from each other, and that begins the start of their kind of friendship. But this book, it's just so good. It's not what you expect. It definitely has the romance element, but there's also a lot of heartbreaking, really emotional stuff that comes with the main character. She's gone through so much in her life, and I feel like that's kind of where I feel the Degrassi element come in. Degrassi literally covers everything. Any like teen issue that you can think of is covered in the show, and I think this book also shows a really important teen issue, and I will put trigger warnings in the description if you want them, just so you know. But I think this book is really, really wonderful and worth reading. Next book on my list is Bully by Penelope Douglas. This book follows 2 people, a boy and a girl, who grew up being the best of friends, but then one summer there's this big falling out, and quote unquote he begins bullying her, right? And so it's their senior year. She's finally kind of fed up with the bullying, so she decides to fight back. She doesn't know what she did to make this boy turn on her so bad. They used to be best friends. So this book's definitely serving enemies to lovers excellence. It's amazing, and I think that's very reminiscent of Degrassi. There's tons of romance drama in the show, so if that's something you like, you need to watch the show. But this book just really reminds me of Degrassi. It's senior year, really like tensions are high. It's just really, really good. Lots of drama, but lots of really good romance as well. I forgot to mention that I chose like a mix of YA and new adult books for the video. So the first 2 books were new adult. This book that I'm going to be recommending now is young adult, and it is called Little Do We Know by Tamara Ireland Stone. This one is kind of similar to Bully, but it has to do with 2 girls who have a really big falling out. They've been best friends, they're neighbors, same as Bully, they're neighbors in that one as well. But these 2 girls are neighbors, they grow up together, but something happens where they have a really big falling out, and it's actually really crazy how you find out about the story. You read the chapters through alternating point of views of the 2 different girls, and this book was just so good. And like I said, it touches on those really important teen issues that aren't really explored a ton in books. Like, I feel like a lot of YA books don't want to go there, but I feel like Tamara Ireland Stone really goes there in this book, and her previous books that I've read. She always talks about some hard-hitting issues, so if that's something you're into, I would check her out. But this book especially reminded me of Degrassi because of kind of what goes on in it. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's definitely worth the read. Okay, and the last book that I'm going to be recommending for Degrassi is called First by Laurie Elizabeth Flynn. This book I read a really long time ago, and I gave it like such a raving review because I was obsessed with it. It follows this girl whose name is Mercedes, I believe, and she has this thing going where she helps boys in her high school get ready, quote unquote, to be intimate with their girlfriends. And like, that sounds so bizarre off the top of your head. Like, she prepares boys to be intimate. Like, yeah, like literally that. And so this book is kind of crazy. I love the protagonist. I think she's so misunderstood and just interesting. I feel like sometimes I get so bored of the same like typical protagonist in YA books. I just personally love a broken, misunderstood protagonist who might not be likable all of the time, and I feel like there's a lot of characters like that in Degrassi who are just misunderstood and just don't really know what they're doing, and they're just trying to figure it out, and that's really how I feel about the main character in this book. I also think that this book has a lot of important topics in it. Sexuality, it talks a lot about feminism and equality, and I love this book. It's something I never hear anybody talk about, but I loved it so much and I definitely recommend it. Next series we're going to be talking about is Outer Banks, which is on Netflix. It just came out a few weeks ago, but I already binged it and I'm obsessed with it. This follows a bunch of teenagers who live in the Outer Banks, which is like a coastal island. And so I kind of went with that like summer teen vibe. So I kind of followed that theme, kind of trope for these recommendations. The first book, however, I literally heard of what Outer Banks was about, and I heard that the main guy in the show falls for this girl who's a lot more rich than him, and he's kind of poorer, and they're living on the island in kind of opposite worlds. And there's this book called The Distance Between Us by Casey West, and it's one of my all-time favorite books, and it follows this town where you're either the working class or you're the high class, and that's very much like what OBX is about. And so I immediately thought that there was a comparison there, so that's kind of what inspired this video, if I'm being honest. But yes, The Distance Between Us by Casey West, it is a phenomenal book about a girl who works in this shop with her mother, and she meets this boy who's rich, and he comes into the shop one day, but they kind of have this instant connection, this cute banter with each other, and they can't stay away from each other even though they're kind of from opposite worlds. And that very much follows kind of like the main romance of Outer Banks. So if you're into that, I really think you'll like this book as well. Next book is Paper Towns by John Green, a tried and true favorite of mine. I just feel like this book has such a big sense of adventure. If you haven't read Paper Towns, it follows this boy who's really in love with this girl who ends up disappearing. So he takes him and his friends on this really long adventure to find her. That's kind of just like the basic premise. But that reminded me a lot of kind of the adventure element of Outer Banks. There's kind of a mystery happening in the show. If you've watched it, you know. And so I felt like the road trip that happens in Paper Towns is very reminiscent of kind of the quest that's going on in Outer Banks. So I really felt that comparison there. So I think you would like it if you've watched the show and you enjoy it. Next is another tried and true Lovely Like Laura recommendation, and that is the Rosemary Beach series by Abby Glines. I felt like this was a good recommendation because it kind of embraces the same vibes of the show, just like the beachy coastal town, rich kids, and just like fun happening, drama happening, romance happening. Rosemary Beach follows a bunch of teenagers who live in Rosemary Beach, Florida, and just kind of the different things they get into, a lot of romance and just fun stuff happening all the time. And that just kind of felt like the Outer Banks vibe to me. I don't know. I think it's just like the beachiness of it all, but I really love the Rosemary Beach series. It's so long. However, if you're looking for something to binge, it's the perfect series. The books are short and interesting and fun, and I love all of the couples, and I think you guys will too. So definitely check it out if you've not already. And the last recommendation for Outer Banks is the Summer I Turned Pretty series by Jenny Han. This series follows a girl who has grown up going to this beach house with a second family, and the other family has 2 boys. And one summer she comes to the beach house kind of grown up for the first time, finally looking older to them. They finally actually notice her, and a lot goes on that summer, a lot of development and just kind of coming of age, but also a romance. And I personally love this series so much. I feel like a lot of people are obsessed with her other series, the To All the Boys I Loved Before series, which I like, don't get me wrong, but Summer I Turned Pretty just has a special place in my heart. And again, just kind of the beach vibe, summer, drama, romance, that kind of stuff reminds me of Outer Banks. So yeah, those are my recommendations for books like Outer Banks. I also want to mention this other series that I have not read, but I just feel like it would have Outer Banks vibes, and that's called The Islanders. It's by Catherine Applegate and Michael Grant. I could have just totally pulled that out of nowhere. If that's their names, I'm amazing. I don't know, I think this book just follows like a bunch of teenagers that live like the island life, so I feel like that would be comparable to Outer Banks. I don't know, I haven't read it, but I have the paperback and I always see it and it reminds me of it. I don't know, I haven't read it, but if you've read it, let me know if it's actually Outer Banks vibes. But anyways, those are my recommendations for Outer Banks. The next show that I'm going to be giving recommendations for is The Bachelor. Yes, everybody's favorite reality TV show. Very, very fun. We're not going to talk about Peter's season. That was just a boot for me, but I really wanted to do The Bachelor because I felt like I could talk about just a general trope of unconventional romances, which I think is kind of my like niche topic I talk about on my channel. I talk about a lot of unconventional romances, so I wanted a chance to give you guys some recommendations in this video. Of course, the first recommendation though has to be The Selection by Kira Cass. This is obviously a series I talk about all the time and constantly compare it to The Bachelor because it's basically The Bachelor but the royal family, and that's really all you have to say to explain this book. The book follows this girl who kind of comes from nothing and she gets a chance to go to the castle and try to win the prince's heart, even though she could not be less interested, but she ends up staying there as she makes a pact with the prince that she'll give him insider info if he allows her to stay at the castle, because she's kind of enjoying her time there, and he agrees. Obviously it doesn't stay like that forever, but the series is so good and it's becoming a movie, guys. I'm so excited. I'm going to be doing a movie talk very, very soon about my predictions and my dream cast and all of that, so stay tuned if you want to watch that. But yes, The Selection, it's basically The Bachelor in a book. Like, that's all I really have to say. The next recommendation is The Fillin Boyfriend, another book by Casey West. And this is a very unconventional romance because it kind of follows the fake dating trope that I know a lot of people really, really like. It follows a girl who on prom night gets dumped by her boyfriend. This is a boyfriend that has never met any of her friends, and her friends kind of don't even think he's real, to be honest. So she's panicking. She thinks they're gonna judge her and think that she made this boy up the whole time. So she finds this random guy in the parking lot and asks him for a favor to come in and act like her boyfriend, and he agrees, and then they kind of end up having this situation where he needs someone to act like his girlfriend, and they kind of use each other for a while, but it obviously can't stay like that for long in a romance book. This is a really fun one. I love all of Casey West's books so much, so fast-paced and fun, and I just love the fake dating trope. I mean, who doesn't? The next recommendation is Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. This is a book that I'm obsessed with, and it follows the trope of like them knowing each other in real life and online but not knowing it's the same person. That's one of my favorites, as you guys all know, and I just love this book so much. This girl moves to California, to this town where this boy lives that she's been talking to online forever, but she doesn't want to tell him that she's there. She doesn't want to risk ruining what they have, but she ends up getting a job at this museum, and there's this really mean boy who works at the museum and she can't stand him. It's him. Like, it's him. It tells you on the back of the book. It's not a spoiler. You don't have to not know that. Like, it's very obviously like dramatic irony as you're reading. You're supposed to know that it's him. And that's just my favorite. I love like a good build up to like them realizing. It's just like my favorite thing. So highly recommend this book. The next book is kind of a crazy taboo book that I just read, but I wanted to throw it in because I figured some of you guys want something a little crazier than some of the YA books. And that is Credence by Penelope Douglas. This definitely has an unconventional romance, as I couldn't even tell who the main romance was until like halfway through the book. This book follows a girl who, when her parents both pass away and leave her to go live with her step uncle who she doesn't even know and his two sons, she's really nervous, but she decides to go because she doesn't really like her life in California very much anyway. So she goes and stays with them in Colorado, I think, at their like ski lodge cabin in the woods, really hidden away, kind of creepy. And she ends up living with these three boys. And like I said, very taboo story. If you read romance books, your mind's probably going to where it's going, and yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Like, something crazy does happen at this cabin, and it just really was an interesting book. I don't think it's like my all-time favorite Penelope Douglas book by any means, but it was like really interesting to read as I was reading it, and the romance was really unconventional. So if you're looking for something crazy, I recommend it. Okay, and then the last show that I'm going to be talking about is is Full House, which is just one of my favorite shows. I can quote every single episode a million times over. But this show kind of gives me family and just coming of age vibes, lots of stories about life and just kind of growing up. So that's kind of the vibe I went for these recommendations. The first book on my list is Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson. This is my favorite Morgan Matson book by far. I love it so much. This book follows a girl who for every summer for her whole life, she's been going to this beach house and she's made friends there. A lot's happened, but one summer something crazy happens and she kind of cuts all ties with everyone she knows at this beach house, and her family stops going for a few years, but her family decides one more time they're gonna go up to the beach house and spend the summer together. And so she's forced to go up there and she doesn't know what she's walking back into. She doesn't know about these friendships and maybe other ships, you know, boyfriend that she's left up there, and left them with no explanation at all about why she left and why she did what she did. And so it kind of follows her and her summer and the journey she has while at the house. And this is a super emotional book. It took me on a roller coaster of emotions. However, I do think there's a lot of meaning in this book. I really appreciate the relationships that are developed throughout the story, and the family aspect is really there. That's one thing about Morgan Matson's books that I really appreciate. I feel like sometimes you read YA and you're like, does this person have a mom? Like, do they exist? Like, I don't understand. But with Morgan's books, they're always very present, which I appreciate. So highly recommend this book. It's just too good. I love it. Next recommendation is Saint Anything by Sarah Dessen, another one of my favorite young adult authors. This book follows a girl whose brother ends up going to prison because he kills somebody in a drunk driving accident, and her parents are kind of like in favor of her brother and don't really care that he did that. They're just like sad he's away in prison, and she's kind of feeling lost because she feels like she doesn't belong. One day she meets this boy who works at a pizza shop and it's run by his family. This family kind of accepts her with open arms, and she kind of finds like a second family in them, and it kind of follows that and her relationship with the boy that works at the pizza shop, the son. Again, I really like this book because it has the romance, it has the kind of coming of age summery vibes, but it also has the family aspect, which is always present in Full House. So really recommend this book. Honestly, it's one of my favorite by Sarah Dessen, which is saying a lot because she has so many phenomenal books, but I highly recommend this one. Another book for Full House is called My Life with the Walter Boys by Ali Novak. This was actually originally on Wattpad, and I read it a long time ago, but it follows a girl who, when tragedy strikes her family, she has to end up going and staying with somebody else, and that happens to be the Walters, and they have 12 sons. And so she's forced into this new environment where she has suddenly 12 boys that she's living with, and it's so chaotic and crazy in that house, but she has to deal with it and just kind of live her life, and all these new experiences and all these new things are happening. But again, very family oriented, but also I think there's a little sprinkle of romance in there as well. I really enjoyed this book, and it's super fast paced, really fun, and just gave me Full House vibes. I don't know. The last book I'm going to be recommending for Full House is called Lost and Found by Nicole Williams. This book follows a girl who ends up getting herself into trouble quite often, and her mother is kind of sick of her, and she's like, listen, if you can't straighten it out by the fall, you're not going away to art school, you're not having your dreams. So she sends her away to live with this family who owns a ranch, and on this ranch there's this boy named Jesse, and he's like this really sweet cowboy type, like really cute. And this girl is obviously kind of a rebel, kind of the opposite of him, but they kind of find solace in each other, and there's kind of a relationship that gets explored there. But I chose this book for Full House again because she kind of doesn't have like a stable family life at home. Obviously she has her mom, but from the premise of the book you can kind of tell that they're constantly butting heads. So when she goes to this ranch and lives with this family, they kind of take her in, and there's just this really sweet like family aspect in this book. You guys can tell I love a good family aspect in a book, in a show, whatever. It's just like I love it. So that definitely gives me the Full House vibe. They're kind of protecting her and taking her in and accepting her even though she's different, and I really like that. So highly recommend that book as well. So I hope you guys got enough recommendations in this video. I know I feel like I've been rambling for 30 minutes, but I hope you guys find something new to read. And again, let me know if you like this style of video. If you want me to talk about other shows, I can definitely do so. So let me know. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe to my channel down below if you've not already and you want to see more book related videos from me. But other than that, I hope you guys all have a fantastic day, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye.